right, so welcome everybody. Today we're going to be talking about this Virgo, Mercury retrograde in Virgo. And of course, Virgo ruled by Mercury. So extra things, we think about Mercury retrograde and we already know, right? All the glitches, all the miscommunications, all the things that can go all the different sideways. But really, whenever a planet is in retrograde, it's our time to recalibrate. And it's not a coincidence that that RX that we see next to a planet when it's appearing to go backwards from our position here on our vantage point on Earth is like a prescription. It's our medicine, right? And so we're still in Venus medicine, where we're at the tail end of that Venus medicine in Leo, learning how we are meant to reignite our joy and our play and our passions, how we are here to revalue all of that Leo energy. And now we have a second inner planet, Mercury, who is offering its medicine to rethink, reorganize, reset. Now, those are just like the basics, right? Of kind of what this Mercury in retrograde in Virgo is. And when we think about both the Mercury ruling Gemini as well as Virgo, Gemini is all up in the mind, all air, all logic, thinking things through, A, B, C, A, B, C. And I know for a lot of us, me included, that sometimes we can get stuck, right, in the mind and not actually take action. And that's what we need Virgo for, right? And we think about Virgo, we think, oh, harvest priestess, purity, the fall, and all things that need to be perfect. And that is such a simplistic way to look at this idea of Virgo, because Virgo is so much more. Virgo is not only ruled by Mercury, but she is also mutable earth, earth that can change and adapt. We all need earth to make manifest, to buy things, to build things, to have a body, to take action in our bodies, to do what we need to do. And that mutability to adapt, to shift, to change is that intelligence, that what's that called? The adaptability quotient, that intelligence where we don't get stuck in one way. And so April Millar says integration, indeed, integration, synthesizing. Because, right, we all know Virgo loves to collect data. She needs that data to be evidence based. Seeing Jamira nod. I need Jamira in our team because that Virgo energy, we need that to execute and to implement and all those things to integrate, right? But it's not integrating just to like take orders. It's integrating by looking at the whole, by looking at all of the data that we've collected to make a decision on what we're going to do next. Right. And so when I'm talking to like clients, I love talking about this idea as the harvest priestess again, because the harvest priestess has data from decades and decades of the seasons, of drought seasons, of the crops that will work best in these different microclimates, of the communities that she needs to feed, of the winter weather that's going to come up, how much seed she needs to store, how much food she needs to save and preserve, how much food that she needs for the here and now, what kind of seeds. This is all from Virgo. Right. And so Virgo is very much a synthesizer and a diagnostician. But Virgo doesn't get all of this talent from just sitting on her butt and not doing anything, just thinking about it, right? She is out there practicing so she can perfect, not be perfect, but perfect, get sharper and sharper and sharper with her understanding. And so, for all of us, when we think about Virgo and how it fits in our lives, of course, on a personal level, this is about our wellness. How are we taking care of our mind, body, and soul? And on a work level, this is about the operation systems that we have in place to support us. But where if we're not even at that place of systems, it's about the daily practice, the daily actions we take to stay on the course for what we want. And then on a community level, global, more social impact, it's how do we remediate? How do we fix things that are broken? Whether this is environmentally, whether this is socially, wherever things are broken, how do we remediate? So today I want to kind of take a deep dive into the medicine that we need, that we get to have this Virgo season, this Mercury in Virgo, so that we get to redo, reflect, re-practice. Okay, so the theme that I've been talking about this Mercury in retrograde is called realign your practice, because one of the gifts of let me share my screen with you for a second. Did y'all get the worksheet? Okay, perfect. I feel the worksheet has some great journaling questions for us. So definitely print these out if you're a writer, or spend time on some of these questions. And so one of the, I want to come back to this idea of coherence, right? We opened up our session today talking about this idea of coherence as being attuned. It's one of the aspects of attunement. And so, yes, there's wholeness that comes from Virgo. If we're going to play hard, we need to, or if we're going to work hard, we need to play hard and rest hard. If this idea of our family really has a lot of needs for us at one time, how can we lessen our business so that the whole is operating, right? There's no such thing as work-life balance, because there's always going to be things in our work, in our life, that need more attention. And so how do we give it that wholeness? And so one of the ways that we give it this wholeness is this idea of coherence. Of course, I'm a musician, right? So I'm always like, when I hear these words, I like see it from like a musical lens. But if you've ever played an instrument or ever sang in a choir, you know that the people that are playing are in coherence or in tune when they sound good together, right? Ooh, a name says, loving all my parts, even the ones that I'm ashamed of. That exactly, that's part of that beautiful idea of like wholeness. And so coherence, I can see it on both like an energetic level as well as an earthly level, where coherence to me from an energetic level is this unity, that attunement, that alignment, where once there was separation. And so when we think about on an energetic level, I'm seeing this coherence where we're bringing back, where we're like, as Rhonda says, harmonizing or integrating or aligning our emotions and our spirit once again, noticing where maybe we're not willing to face certain emotions, or we're feeling so disconnected from our emotions that we're really disconnected from our soul. And Mickey says all the facets of our self, past, present, and future selves, right? Just like a name said, all of the pieces, like all of our pieces, even the ones that we're ashamed of, right? Heidi says, honoring all the emotions, moving through emotions because they're an energy in motion, 100%, right? And then for some of us, right, we've blocked off those emotions so completely, right? There's so many different ways we can look at this idea of energetic coherence, right? Knowing that we have storms that we can move through, knowing that, as April says, we have achievements that we need to celebrate. One energetic level of coherence is that unification between emotion and spirit. In the earthy realm, right? Our practical realm, our day-to-day realm, our business realm, in our work, this is where we got to get shit done. Right? To make the impact, to do the things that we want to do, to move the needle forward, to accomplish our intentions. Coherence brings together aligned and consistent actions, meaning now our mind and our body, our hands, what we take action in. Mickey, is it okay if I share our conversation today? Would you be okay with that? So interestingly enough, Mickey and I always have like sessions right before we have these big workshops, and she inspires me with her stories. And so, for all of us, and there's no shame in what Mickey was doing, but I pointed out that when Mickey was talking about her goals and her big dreams and what she wanted, she was always talking around the dream, not actually giving words to her dream. It's like, well, my big dream that I want to do, and then I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this. And then all of a sudden we're like off in left field. I'm like, hold on, let's give word to this big dream. And it was a little bit difficult for Mickey to say it. But when she finally said it, she claimed, right, being an affluent artist with many creative offerings. Super clear and to the point. When we can say that with clarity with what we want, instead of just calling it like, oh, my big dream, or this thing that I want to do, or I'm working on this magical thing. It's like, what is it? Tell the universe what it is, to like clarify in our thoughts. Then we can take consistent actions. And then so for the rest of the session, we kind of mapped out a 4-month plan. Mickey has a deadline of what we needed to do. So we knew how long we had to take, and we mapped out our consistent actions: daily, weekly, monthly. Because it's these consistent actions, this practice, that we are getting to realign to, right? So I'm telling you all of this, all of these things about coherence, is to really check, recheck, reorganize, remind, re-energize ourselves with this Mercury retrograde medicine into what do we need to realign in coherence with either our emotions and spirit, well, not either, emotion, spirit on an energetic coherence, and our earthly coherence with our thoughts and our actions. So you can see how now on the energetic level, we have fire, spirit, emotions, water. And then our earthy, we have air for our thoughts and earth for our actions. That's wholeness right there. That is absolutely Virgo. And so thinking about this realignment, right? So I say in the worksheet here to reorganize energy, resources, and attention so that the whole operates effectively. It is natural for an org, whether it's an organism made up of all of these little different bio pieces, or an organization made up of all these different like departments and people. It's natural for us to get out of alignment, right? Every day walking, your hamstrings get tight, all of a sudden your glutes are weak and like different muscles pull out of alignment. So then we need to go to people like Dana and chiropractors to get us back into alignment, right? And so we notice, we want to notice this Mercury retrograde where things are unsmooth, where things are ineffective, and where things are just like insufficient, right? That unsmooth, things are difficult. I can't walk up that hill. It's so hard without pain. Ineffective, right? Ooh, my knees, they're not really getting me up that hill. Like I feel the pain in my knees. So now I'm having to take these teeny tiny little steps up that hill instead of being able to get up that hill. And insufficient. I don't have energy, right? Gratefully, those things are not actually things that are happening for me, but I'm just giving you analogies to see, check in your places where things are unsmooth, ineffective, or insufficient. If you're lacking something, or something is taking too many resources, or something is just being way more difficult. Okay. And so, of course, circumstances and values and needs and desires are all shifting and changing, right? And so that's why we get Mercury retrograde 3 times a year, because we get to realign things. And so maybe, we have to realign the people in our lives, right? Whether this be interpersonal relationships or teams, or maybe we have to like readjust the way we spend, right? So maybe tea is not that important for Rhonda right now, right? Maybe. And so we get to shift and change again. This is not about balancing and making everything like equal, but this is like putting the attention and the capacity and the energy and the resources where it needs to go at this time. Okay. But now it also takes practice. Virgo, what is practice from a Virgo perspective? Right. So I feel like, like as an astrologer, I don't ever want to say like I'm a master astrologer or I've learned everything. I feel like I'll never be able to learn everything. Like when I play the classical clarinet, I've been playing the clarinet since the 6th grade, and I'm still learning the Mozart clarinet concerto. And every day when I go into the room to play, it's called practicing. Right. So I feel like almost all of our art forms, all of our skill sets are all a practice, right? To consistently perform an activity to build skill and proficiency so that actions and desired outcome are coherent. And that's why when I was sharing Mickey's story earlier, we set up these daily practices. Like, what are the things that I need to do every day? Because also, sorry, Mickey, to put you on the spot, but it was just so beautiful. And I feel like everybody is going to relate to that. Mickey was judging herself for not being proactive and productive every day, right? And she was like then getting in this like cycle of procrastination, right? Or so-called procrastination. But with Mickey's Leo rising, that first house of what we need to practice every day, well, was Mickey getting outside and playing every day? No. But we know that when Mickey does that, she's awesome. She gets that energy that she wants. And so when we are beating ourselves up or procrastinating on a thing that is, are we really meant to be doing that thing? Is that really moving the needle forward in what we are here to perfect? Right? Because it is human nature to fall out of practice, even if once you established a great habit, right? Like whether it's exercise or eating or checking your bank accounts every day or posting on social media every day, like whatever your goal is. And now we get to re-practice and realign and say, are those things still valuable to me? Can I get back on the horse? Right. Now, of course, always be aware of the heavy shadow of Virgo's rigid regimes, right? Schedules that are overly detailed and packed and impossible to sustain, because this weight is going to break your back over the long term. So to be in coherence with your thought, your actions, and your mind is to take simple, consistent actions. What I mean by consistent actions is that you don't miss more than a day. Maybe if you're somebody who takes the weekends off, you can skip 2 days. But to be consistent is you never skip more than one day, right? So even if you have a calendar, just mark off when you like a habit tracker, right? And so, how can we all bring in more consistent action daily, weekly, monthly? It's through this practice that you can align your mind's intention to your body's action for success. Well, yeah, vacation. What about vacation? We always need a little time off, right? And it also depends on what we're taking a vacation from, right? I mean, if we're preparing for the Olympics or something on vacation, we're still going to have to do that workout, right? Maybe if it's exercise regime, maybe you're just like planning to go snorkeling and hiking every day so that you're still getting some exercise done. Whatever that's, we figure out how to do that there. Going back to like just kind of this music idea, I'm supposed to, again, my fingers are in air quotes, I'm supposed to be practicing at least 90 minutes a day to keep up to be at the highest level of performing. And sometimes I don't have that. I have 20 minutes a day. And I recently, with this Mercury retrograde, I started making a promise to myself, like, if I can just practice 20 minutes a day, that's fine. And so far, it's been like 2 weeks and I haven't skipped more than a day, which is way different than how it was over the summer and before the summer, when I can hear everybody going, why is she not practicing? Well, in my head, right? And so, whatever that is for you, and like however dedicated you are, like whether your practice is to learn a new skill or to show up on social media more consistently or to finally get that website done, whatever it is for you, is to take that consistent action. Okay. And so, coming back to this idea of what does it mean to have this idea, where how we can, all the different levels of this Mercury retrograde that we can apply to, right, in our personal life, in our healing and our awakening, is to recover those routines that leave you the most energized, the most coherent, right? So, morning rituals, maybe it's meditation, maybe it's going back to yoga consistently, maybe it's like finally hiring like a personal trainer or a nutritionist to help you. It's okay to get help. You don't need to do this all alone. But like whatever it is, especially looking in your natal chart by house and like what planets you might have energized, we'll talk about personalizations later, is going to give you a hint to where you need to awaken that personal routines. And then, of course, in your work life and in your leadership and your roles, resume unfinished business. Okay. If you live in California, like I do, we all got tax extensions to October. So if you live in California and you haven't done your taxes, like me, it's time to get all that paperwork together. We've been finished on, like Jeff and I have been finishing up all of these like little things so I can finally get started on Star Pirates file that starts in just a couple of weeks. Oh my gosh. Sorry, Jeff. It's like, I know where we're headed again. But finishing up all of these like brand books that we had on the back burner, just like finishing up all of this old paperwork from my mom, like all of these things. So whatever you have just been hanging over you, get that shit done during this time. Okay. Because as it's hanging there, it's zapping away energy that you could use when you're free of that energy. Right. And then community impact, right? This remediation, restoring your commitment. Like Amanda said, like I'm still like Hawaii, me who was hardly impacted by the fires in Hawaii, I'm still absolutely grieving. The process to restore is going to be a long one. And to me, this is like a real keystone in history in terms of, will this continue to just be a land grab of capitalism and colonialism? Or are we really going to give the power back, the stewardship back to the original stewards of the land who knew how to manage all the resources, water, earth, right? So that we don't run into this again. Who knows what's going to happen? And so for me, like my social impact, I'm like, I want to advocate and I want to help all of like the creators in Hawaii that are going to be doing this work. It hasn't yet, it started, but it hasn't even got into that full roar yet. And so for all of us to think about this social impact, like where do we need to heal the earth? The environmental justice feeds into the social justice. So where do you want to restore your commitment to? Okay. So those are all of the ways that we can reorganize, realign, and remediate to awaken our practice. Mercury is at right now at 21 degrees of Virgo, is going to be moving back 8 degrees. So it's going to be, is that 12 degrees? I think I did the math wrong too. Forget the details. See, when I get into the details, I always get lost. I'm sorry. And so this second Mercury retrograde just reminds you, yay, we get another chance to realign our current reality without shame. We get to. Right. 13 degrees and 23 days reminds us to take the time to pay attention to details during this realignment phase. Okay, Leslie, pay attention to details, read the fine print, recalculate. Proven example. And then there's nothing happening in Virgo right now. Opposite in Pisces, we have Saturn and early degrees of Pisces. So this Mercury is not going to be aspecting Saturn. The only planet that Mercury will be aspecting of all of like the main planets is Jupiter in Taurus, where it'll be trining 3 times. And Jupiter, of course, likes to go big. It likes to exceed expectations. But when we have this kind of Mercury retrograde in Virgo, to me, it's not about going big. This is about reoptimization and revisioning, right? Because Jupiter wants you to exceed your expectations. And sometimes exceeding your expectations isn't necessarily about going gigantic, it's just like maximizing and optimizing what is already there. Okay, so this Jupiter, as it aspects 3 times, it's kind of creating a little container for this Mercury retrograde. It happened first on August 9th, then it's going to happen again in September 4th, and then again on September 25th. So thinking about, well, why are we realigning our practice? For reoptimization and revisioning. So getting us back on purpose. Okay. And I'm like, oh, Mickey, that's exactly what we did today. Getting back on track to our highest purpose. All right, so we got some schedules, and it's been wonderful. I just want to shout out to April. Thank you, April, for helping Jeff and me with kind of like formatting some of the social media graphics that are a little more potent on the powerful message instead of the details. And so we had these B statements that were kind of buried in there that we brought them out. And so, the past few weeks while Mercury is tracing back in the shadow zone, be kind to yourself today, be patient, right? Be on the floor. The midway point of that Mercury retrograde is on September 6th, that combust point at Virgo of 15 degrees, where that full illumination phase is like, yeah, be honest with yourself. What have you realized? Without shame, right? Without judgment. On 9/15, on September 15th, when Mercury stations again to go direct at Virgo of 8 degrees, be thoughtful. And then as Mercury passes outside of that shadow zone, be consistent. Keep that consistency with you. Okay. Oh yes, and then these new graphics just kind of like moving things around, right? So 6 things to do to realign your thoughts and actions into coherent practice, right? So we talked about resume unfinished business and take back your energy. Everybody put in the chat one thing that is unfinished business that you're going to take care of this Mercury retrograde. For me, it's taxes. Ooh, Rhonda. Oh, Ishel taxes, Rhonda curriculum, Christy paperwork, Mylene certification, but Jeff upcoming show, clean the carpet, taxes, finding my joy, bookwork, QuickBooks, cleaning my living room and desk area. Yes, finishing off old job and passing everything over. Oh, Elsa following up on mom's estate stuff. Michelle finishing a course. Yes, all of this beautiful. So for people who are listening, figure out what you're gonna unfinish or finish up. Resume finishing. Next thing, re-examine in your life and work what isn't as effective as it could be. Okay. I know for me, what am I re-examining with what isn't as effective? I'm the bottleneck. I have to re-examine myself. Ilza says systems. What are you going to re-examine? And of course, the house that it transits is the place that where we really need to reiterate, right? So April, time management. Ilza is the bottleneck too. For me, Virgo, this is going to be mostly 4th house at home. So maybe it's time to like, yeah, settle a bunch of estate things for me too. Amanda, energy. Martha, where can I automate? I love that thinking because, yeah, automation is very much a Virgo Aquarius thing, right? Aquarius is the technology, but the Virgo part is the systems that help do the lift. Oh, sixth house. Yes, annual blood work. Perfect for that wellness. I love that. Revitalize good habits that you might have fallen off from, right? Remember some of our daily habits. The best practice for daily habits and starting off on daily habits will always come from your rising sign. Okay, so look to there for a clue. Reorganize. A lot of people said that they're going to clean their carpets and clear the clutter from their desks and the living room. So perfect. So reorganize your space both energetically and physically. Reconfigure processes so that energy and attention are reappointed. So, like a name was saying, where should I prioritize my energy? It's like put your energy and resources where it's most needed, right? Sometimes it's not where we want it to be, right? So sometimes it has to go where it's needed. And then remediate the damages as you restore your wellness for maximum effectiveness, right? And what I mean by that, it's kind of like the number one where we're resuming unfinished business, but this is probably more in like your personal life, right? Like for me, I got off like my eating habits, so I gained some weight, right? So I now have to dig myself out of that hole, fix things before I can like make them better. And that's what I mean by that remediation. It's like kind of like if you've been like putting off like fixing the roof or fixing the foundation in your home, and then all of a sudden now you're left with a bigger hole because you didn't take care of it in the first place. And so finding places that you could remediate, and it could be personal or all of those things. Okay, where is being activated? Which house occupies Virgo of 8 degrees to 21 degrees? And this is the area of your life that you're being asked to realign. Um, so, oh yeah, so you're the Mercury on Mercury. Okay, so Mercury retrograde, if you mostly have a sixth house, your wellness and operations. If it's mostly a fifth house, you might, mostly sixth house, you might be an Aries rising, wellness and operations. Mostly fifth house, you might be a Taurus rising. This would be creativity and your passion projects. So, like, where are you bringing yourself more joy? If you're Gemini, mostly fourth house or Gemini rising, this is your home and your inner needs, your personal life. If it's mostly third house or Cancer, really expressing your needs and using your voice and communications, like as what you're saying, really coherent to what you need and what you want. If it's mostly a second house for our Leo rising folks, money and values, right? Who had that QuickBooks? And you're a Leo rising. Oh, funny how that works. Um, if you're mostly first house and Virgo rising, self and your leadership identity, who do you want to be? If this is mostly 12th house, or if you're a Libra rising, maybe you're Libra rising, this is your soul work and definitely unfinished business. If this is mostly in the 11th house or your Scorpio rising, this is, realigning to your community and your social impact. Mostly 10th house or Sagittarius rising, your reputation and delivering on your offers and your ultimate mission. Mostly ninth house, your big why and your purpose for maybe those Capricorn risings, right? Reoptimizing that purpose, reoptimizing that vision. If it's mostly eighth house for us Aquarius risings, transformation and empowerment. And then relationships and customers for our Pisces risings, or if it's mostly in the seventh house. Ah, yes. So Cecilia asked, Virgo of 21 degrees is in my eighth house, but then it goes back through my seventh house. Should I be paying more attention to one or the other? So generally when it's going over a cusp, like the eighth house cusp, I'm paying attention to mostly the themes of the eighth house. But because if Mercury is like going really backtracking in the previous house, there's a relationship between the two houses, right? So if you're working on kind of empowerment or shared resources, it's like, well, what do I need to realign with my customers? right? Because they're related there. So I'm sure that's happening for many of us. But prioritize where that cusp line is being crossed, and if there's a lot of degrees in the previous house, then definitely how those two houses are related. Beautiful. Okay, so remember when you're personalizing your Mercury retrograde, I want you to highlight those degrees between 21 degrees of Virgo and 8 degrees of Virgo. Find out which house is being aspected. Find out which planets are sitting within those degrees of Pisces, which is opposite that way. Like maybe you have planets or angles in Pisces. And then, of course, then look at Gemini and Virgo if you have any planets or houses. In the example chart in the worksheet, this is my chart. You can see that my midheaven, all of my angles are being impacted because it's going right over my IC. So my Mercury at my midheaven, my rising sign, my descendant, all being impacted. So this Mercury retrograde, no wonder it's just kind of hitting me already. A name says no planets or angles. Great, smooth sailing, right? But if you do have a planet, remember that planet is like, hey, don't forget about me. I need some realignment, right? So Mercury, my Mercury is like, are you sure you're talking about the right things? And that's actually something that we're working on internally, thanks to April, and thanks to Ishel, who's also been who's been alleviating some work as well. So I'm really appreciative of everybody's input. Journaling questions. Okay, now this is just kind of going deeper into everything that we're talking about. Like first starting out with just like what house is being activated by this Mercury, and any other planets, to just kind of collect your ingredients, right? Get curious. That Jupiter and Taurus, right? Remember the reoptimization. How can your wellness and integrity for your coherence get you to your purpose, right? So remember, your purpose is involved here. Are you taking coherent actions towards your purpose? And if you're not, then this is where you get to realign. And then what is out of alignment in your life, in your work, in your community, right? Now, you might have like a list of like 20 things. Obviously, we're not going to be able to do all 20 things in just a short 3 weeks, right? So you might pick like one thing out of each section: your personal life, your work life, your community life. And then think about the daily practices. What tasks do you want to do daily that will set you up for success? I know somebody earlier said meditation. Mickey is going to go out and play. I'm going to go practice my clarinet. What's something that you can do daily? If you need help with that, start with your rising sign. Breath work, body work, eating well, petting your cat, whatever it is. Hydrating. All these things these daily practice things do not have to be hard. In fact, the simpler they are, the more streamlined they are, the better that the more of a practice it'll be. Ooh, April, dry brush my body. So good for lymphatic drainage and just like all the things that you'll be brought awareness to let go of. Okay, weekly practice. Now, there's things that we don't need to do every day. Maybe you want to send an email out weekly. Maybe you want to put your receipts together for bookkeeping weekly. Maybe you want to get together with a friend and go to yoga class weekly, right? Maybe you want to volunteer at the community garden weekly. What is that thing that you want to do weekly? And then, of course, monthly. These are generally the heavier lift tasks, like reviewing your reports that your bookkeeper sends, making sure all of your invoices are being paid. Things like that are so basic that you put off, that you're like, I better get back on track. Okay, so monthly practice. And then then the next journaling questions just go back to the 6 things, and then you can explore a little bit more. All right. So I want to answer some questions right now that you don't mind having on the podcast. And then after I answer your questions about this Mercury retrograde, okay, so we'll put these questions in the frame of the Mercury retrograde. After I answer your questions, then there's a few questions that I want to answer from free questions that people have asked in the Facebook group, Star Powered Podcast Facebook group. Does anybody have any questions?
So I surprisingly, and well, maybe it's not surprising because I do have my Virgo moon, but I tend to get more energy this my motivation starts to kick in. And so I can even feel that with the Mercury in retrograde. So so is that just because I have one of my big 3 in Virgo, and or is that just
well
that
that might be the sun. Do you know what position is your Mercury, like a stationed Mercury or a retrograde Mercury? Do you happen to know?
Mine is the honeycomb. I actually think I have a really pretty fast moving Mercury.
Oh,
Or that might be my Venus, actually. Thank goodness the honeycomb. It is pretty quick.
oh, okay.
But it's that one.
So is it in general, do you feel like Mercury retrogrades, you like really get like you love these times? Because I'm thinking from what you're saying that it's mostly just because the sun now is in Virgo season impacting your moon.
Okay. Yeah, probably. Probably more the sun than no, I'm not always energetic during Mercury in retrograde.
Yeah.
So
Generally the people that I've noticed that have like fast moving Mercuries, and what April was referring to as the honeycomb almanac, and if you get different readings you can actually see the speed of your Mercury, like how fast it's going forward or how fast it's going backwards. And generally for people who have very fast moving Mercuries that are going direct, these Mercury retrogrades are like the worst thing for them because they're like just constantly fighting right, the speed of that Mercury. I remember I had this one client who like just absolutely hated Mercury retrogrades, and I was like, well, because you're like a train getting off the tracks because you're going too fast when you're supposed to be slowing down, right? And then for those of us who have like fallen like Mercury in Pisces, or like Mercury retrograde or stationed Mercuries, right? Then like this is like, ooh, this feels good because like all of a sudden like the world is energetically aligned with us to like kind of like think in our process, right? Jeff, is your Mercury fast? Yeah. And sometimes I'll remind Jeff, I'm like, take your time, slow down. It's okay. I don't need it now. But there's so many details. Like anytime you've ever done a design project, you need at least 3 eyes on it because, like if Jeff is working on the design and I'm working on the content, then we need like an editor to like do all the checks because it's so many details. So I never get mad at those little things. Um, isn't that just ADHD? You know, ADHD, I have like, if the world just honored all of the like infinite ways people learn and adjust to things, then we wouldn't be freaking labeled as ADHD just because we don't fit in this like teeny tiny, like narrow mindset of like what it is to be able to learn in a very specific way. Oh, that pisses me off. Okay. I'll get off. I have Uranus is on my Mars right now, so like everything pisses me off really fast. So calm down, Leslie. um, any other questions? Hi, Martha.
Oh, I just my sun is Virgo, 7 degrees, and I'm also in the heart of this Venus retrograde, and I was born with Venus retrograde, right? So my Venus return. So I'm just curious about the impact of Venus retrograde, whether that's just very personal for me this year, or whether it like that sort of interplay for everyone between the
Yeah.
Venus retrograde and the Mercury.
Well, of course, for you, it's very, very significant because you're in that kind of like home environment, that original resonance of your Venus retrograde, your natal Venus retrograde, right? Like that already feels so at home, so aligned, and just feels really good. So I wonder, I'm curious, what have you attracted at this time?
Oh, there's been a lot business-wise that's going on, like attracting soul customers and just a ton of opportunities to get the message out there, which is fun. So,
Oh, that's
and mentorship. I've
amazing.
had folks come out of the woodwork to say they want to mentor me to get the message out there. So, yeah.
That's beautiful. Yes, congratulations to that, Martha. So, for sure, the Venus retrograde has a special significance for you, right? But for all of us in a general level, including you, right? But like more important for you, that is the Venus retrograde. But then for all of us, right? All of these kinds of divine alignments, they come in a specific order, right? So when we had that Venus retrograde, and then we had the Leo new moon right after, when it was combust, and then now we have this Mercury retrograde, and then we'll have I don't think there's any other let me just double check. I don't think there's any big aspects until we have Sun enters Virgo, Mars enters Libra, and then we have the full moon in Pisces. So to me, yes, the Mercury retrograde is responding to the learnings of the Venus retrograde. So Venus retrograde is almost over. Let me just double check. I put my reading glasses on. Double check in my ephemeris here. Details schmetals. It's
I think it's the
August.
4th. I think it's the 4th of September.
Yes. So we're going to have like a good couple, like a week and a half, where both of them are going in retrograde, right? And so we're mostly done with the re-evaluation and the medicine of that Venus retrograde. And so now we have to start taking coherent action and really shift the way we think about things and make coherent our energies as well as our actions based on these new practices that we need to align for that Venus, right? So going back to Mickey again, sorry, Mickey, for putting you on the spotlight again, but it's just like such a perfect example when we're talking about her Venus retrograde and how she really wants to be more creative and bring more creativity into her daily life and like really claim the artist that she is. Now that Mercury retrograde medicine is like, okay, what are we going to take daily practice for that? And so for all of that, it's true. So for you, Martha, with wanting to get your voice out there and connecting with more and attracting more with your soul customers, and then finding all of those serendipitous opportunities that are going to help you get there. Now Mercury is like, okay, Martha, what coherent action are you going to take to stay on top of that value that you want to bring in more of, that you want to amplify? Did I answer your question? Okay. I mean, it's beautiful divine timing, like the way that this works out. To me, it is anyway.
Yeah, and when I looked at that celestial seasonings that are I say that all the time.
That's a tea, right?
Activated me, Rhonda, with your tea talk. I'm definitely in that Leo 7th, like I have a big 7th house season. And so it's interesting how all of those things have kind of aligned. So I'm really grateful for all the teachings and all the teaching that you've given us, because you can really start to see all the synergy that happens at that time. So thank you.
Isn't it beautiful? I love that you have that extended, and you're welcome. I love that that 7th house, you have that extended 7th house, partnerships, mentorships, affiliates, soul customers, all of the people that need you, that you need. Love it. Thank you. All right. And so, okay, so let's see. I'm going through here. Ilza says, I don't have access to my chart. Oh, I think my Mercury is in Virgo, and I wonder what is going on for me. I feel pretty inspired right now. Okay, let's take a look. I'm not going to share anybody's charts today just because we'll be sharing it on the podcast. So I want to keep everybody's information private. So Ilza, your Mercury is at 2 degrees of Virgo in your 8th house, along with Pluto and Uranus there. And so this is definitely a 7th house activation. Venus is sitting on also your descendant. The sun is going right over your Mercury. I would say that, the if you've had any kind of like upsets, not necessarily like upsets, like it doesn't have to be bad, just like changes in your relationships over the last couple of months, that you're going to have a repeat and a re-understanding of what's happening. I feel like you're feeling that kind of idea of being alive and pretty inspired right now is happening from Venus being right on your descendant, which is basically shaking up all of the angles of your natal chart. So really enjoy that feeling. You'll have a couple of more days of that like really high inspiration. And then as Mercury transits back over all of your 8th house Virgo energies, you're gonna it's going to go back to your Uranus and back to Pluto. It's going to give you more of those downloads that you've been talking about, those kinds of like the awakening and understandings of what you are here to do for your clients. Okay. Awesome. You're beautiful. Elsa says beautiful. Excellent. All right. Anybody else? Oh, yes. Amanda wants to know your take, my take on Mercury retrograde. Sure, let me take a look. So let me pull up your chart. So, my friend, Mercury retrograde is happening in your 5th house. And so, yes, so you also have a Virgo stellium in your 5th house, Jupiter, Mars, and Saturn all in retrograde, right? And then, as Mercury and Mars are now going on top of all of that 5th house energy, I'm thinking like, like how over our time that we've been working together, really working through this idea of there's so much anger and resentment, not like purposeful like anger and resentment, because like shitty things have happened, right? Like there's a lot of things to piss you off, right? And I kind of feel like that's being activated right now. Are you more pissed off than normal?
Surprisingly, I am recognizing it more before I reach DEF CON 5,000. I think that's my cool therapist. I think I'm just exhausted by the rage and I'm finally ready to like do something about addressing it. Yeah. But yes, of course, I'm always ragey. And I think I'm also more cognizant of recognizing it before it gets me.
I
love everyone else
that.
in my circle.
No, I love that, right? That cognizance, like coherence, is like the integration of an understanding and putting that understanding into action. Right. And so, because you have this packed 5th house with all of this Virgo energy, right? That again, that daily practice of bringing a lot of fun into your life. It's like having Leo on the 6th house. It's like we have this Virgo on the 5th house with Jupiter and Mars and Saturn. And so it's about optimizing your wellness and your play. Your wellness and your play has to be very active, and you have to protect it as much as you protect your identity, as much as you protect your bank accounts, because it's just as valuable. Right. And so if we're thinking about this realignment, how do you need to focus in on your daily practice, your weekly practice, and your monthly practice? And I know you've done so many beautiful things through like your yoga and through all of your meditation and things like that, to like really make sure that and with your Taurus rising also, to just like have so much joy and pleasure in your body on a regular basis. And so that Mercury just going back is like saying, okay, check, 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 check here, like adding that coherence to your cognizance.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So I'm not going to leave you there. I want you to commit to one thing that you're going to do every day to make your body feel good.
Stretch.
Stretch. Okay.
This is what I'm realizing is
Beautiful.
like a big part of, yeah. And I'm going to figure out if it's like always in the morning. I would like to say I could do it in the morning, but I'm exhausted in the morning. Like mornings are not my thing, but try to be really purposeful about putting it on the calendar and doing it. If I don't do it when I wake up, if I don't do it right before I jump on Zoom, I have to do it. It's going to get done.
Do you have like a circuit for the stretch that you have?
No, I have some favorites, and then I've kind of been off with my private yoga. So I will go back to her on Friday and try to write some stuff down, like the parasympathetic things that like help with the body.
Yes.
For those. So like stretching the body, but also like the nervous system stuff too, which has become, apparently I've gone 40 plus years without really knowing about that. So I am glad that I know about that now, and I will be maximizing that.
Yeah, they don't teach that to us. We have to discover it because of some kind of like discomfort and dis-ease, right? So okay, where in your body do you where in your body is the tightest?
I mean, like physically is often the hips, but then there's like this always like this tension or this uncomfortable, and it's always like my throat chakra, my throat, like my shoulders, my upper back, and like just working with different practitioners makes perfect sense. But yeah, I know that there's a couple of good things that I can do for whole body stretching, hips, spine, and then like getting more into like this throat thing that has been.
Yeah. So if I may, right, again, if we're just going to make one simple commitment, right, that'll set us up for success for this Mercury retrograde, is do your easiest, most favorite hip stretch before you roll out of bed.
Yeah.
Yeah, you probably already do it. So, but then just like really commit to that. And then just reminding yourself, like every time you sit down to a Zoom, right, you're going to stretch your body, stretch your neck, and like, then you did it.
Yeah.
Easy peasy.
I love it. Thank you. And thank you for like putting this on paper so I can be like,
yep, done and
Leslie
done.
said it, and then I said I was going to do it. And thank you, Heidi. I saw you throw some stuff in there because I have found that this summer has been the summer of learning about my body again at the age of 43 and a half. Whatever. It's the right time, but
Uranus on your ascendant. It's time to awaken your body.
Thanks, y'all. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. All right. Who's next? Mylene? Yeah. All right. So Mylene says, my Virgo moon is 24 degrees in Virgo and in the fourth house, with so close to Mercury retrograde degree points. Anything I should focus more on? Yes. So interesting, right? Let me, I'm going to pull up your chart just so I can see it in front of me. Oh, I don't have your chart, but I can glean from what you said. So this is really getting in touch with your emotions, right? And your interpersonal life, right? Like sometimes, like, especially when we're ambitious and when we're driven and we're successful, or like, I don't got time for that life, right? But then it sounds like this Mercury retrograde, your what you need to nourish the insides is like really calling out and say, don't forget about me. How does that feel for you?
It's on point. I woke up the other day again feeling like I was working out my chest muscles.
Really?
Yeah, it's the second time it's happened over the past month and a half. And I don't remember any dreams that would have, kind of given me any hints as to, but obviously feels like I'm working these muscles, right? Or I'm working sort of this space. And I'm hoping, or the way that I'm looking at it or choosing to look at it is, oh, okay, so maybe I have like kept my heart so tight, like so tight behind my muscles, that now that I'm actually opening it, that it's actually creating a different workout.
Yes.
Yeah, I went to acupuncture yesterday and I was telling her what was happening, and she's asking me about like physical stuff, and I was like, no, none of that. And she's like, emotion. And I was like, great. So that makes sense. Okay.
Well, I'm glad that you're going to see like a maybe even also a doctor just to be just in case, right? I'm not a medical professional. I want to make sure you're taking care of all of the bases, especially when it's like our heart. But then like on that spiritual realm, right? If your moon is in the fourth house, close to the IC, and there's Mercury retrograde going through there, there also might be this indication of like maybe in those dream states you're working on like some ancestor stories or ancestor reconnections, or like things in like the deepest parts of your inner life.
There's definitely a lot of like identity related. It's all the dreams have all from what I can remember have been in dwellings, right? Or in housing. So there's definitely some sort of identity thing that's happening.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Do you have Asha Frost's deck?
I don't. I have one of her decks, but not the Sacred Medicine one.
Okay. Well, I think this is her first one, the only one that's out right now.
Yeah.
Anyway, so she has like a medicine wheel spread, and I was doing one for I just did she also has an ancestor spread, and I using your intuition, and I know you're super intuitive, like that's part of your identity, but if you're having like house things, then there is something that obviously needs to be resolved, like in like whatever intergenerational, like we have to like leave home or migrate or change, right? Like that's a thread, right? Like that's also your story, right? And so when I was doing the other day, I did when I did that, there's this ancestral spread where you look at what needs to be healed from your matrilineal side, you look at what needs to be healed from your patrilineal side, and then the visioning card that comes out as a result is like where you'll end up. And you can ask for the blocks that you wanted to release. So like for me, it's like I'm still trying to build out visibility, right? And I was like, why am I so like invisible? Why do I feel invisible? And so on my Filipino side, my patrilineal lineage said, if people can't know how smart you are, right? That people inside your family will look down on you and say, like, who are you to act like that? I was just like, whoa. I was like, what was that? And then on the matrilineal side, with my Jewish heritage side, it said, you can't be too visible. You can only be smart in your privacy of your home, because if you're seen as too successful or smart, then they're going to take it away from you.
Ah, okay.
So I share that not to just be like, oh, look, listen to my story, but I think that if you do one of those clearings, you might get an understanding, a hit of what that is. Maybe like being forced out of your home, or having too nice of a home, having it taken away, being forced to move. There's something big going on there.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Can you say more about the retrograde going over the MCIC? Yes, my Virgo degrees go over my IC, Pisces over my MC. Yes, so when we have any planet that is transiting over one of the angles, we can think of the angles as like the support beams that hold up the entire structure, right? And so, when a planet goes across one of the beams, of course, it's going to hit the opposite beam, right? And so when we have, is Virgo at the MC? It doesn't matter. So over my IC, Pisces over my MC. Okay, so just like me. So Virgo over the IC, just like with we were talking about Mylene, about how this Virgo retrograde as it goes through the fourth house is really impacting our inner lives. And then no matter what, when we work in our inner lives and cultivate the roots that hold us down, like not hold us down, that ground us into place, and support us, the more that we can rise. And so just thinking about our inner lives isn't just something that we put on the side, but our inner lives is something that we really need to reaccount for, right? Realign to, add coherence to, so that the whole, like the tops of the trees, that overstory can also thrive. So for sure, Christy, just having focusing in on that inner life is going to help you with your outer life. So whatever challenges you might have been having in your professional life or in your outer life, or with your reputation, whether they're actually challenges or not, when you work on your inner life, you become so much stronger and so much vibrant on that outer life. And then of course, when those things shift, just like how Virgo does when it has wholeness and it's reintegrating, it'll reorganize the whole structure, and then your rising sign and your descendant also get impacted. So how you lead and hold yourself in your body is going to have different kind of magnetic resonance to the partners that you bring through. So that's why I say when there's something on the angles, it impacts the entire structure of your chart. So I hope that serves. Betty says, I'm really feeling that inner reflection and who I'm becoming as a Virgo rising. Yeah. Of who you are, who you want to be. Giant. You're welcome, Christy. All right. Does anybody else have questions? Otherwise, we'll go through some questions with, I know this is kind of a long podcast, so Jeff will have to kind of, we'll make some edits, just cut out things that, I don't know, people might really enjoy. Who knows what people like anymore. Just have to be me. Okay, so there's a couple of questions, like really easy questions that people asked in Star Powered Podcast Facebook group. Sorry, I haven't really been so present in my Facebook group. Facebook has felt a little heavy, but know that I'm listening, know that I'm there. Okay. So this is for Christy in the podcast, in the Star Powered Podcast group. Hi, Christy. They ask what to be aware of with both Venus and Mercury retrograde. Yes, so I answered this question with Martha. So if you want to go back and listen to the question that I had with Martha, but there's like divine timing with this Venus retrograde being first, and understanding the medicine of the Venus and how we're looking to reevaluate what brings us joy and seeing the value of our creativity with Venus retrograde. And then now that we have Mercury retrograde going through Virgo, asking us to build in daily practice, then so we take in what we've learned about what we value and say, okay, now my actions have to be really coherent to what I value now. So how can I put in daily, weekly, and monthly practices that will uphold what I've learned with that Venus retrograde? So I think it's beautiful that these two energies are working together. So I hope that serves, Christy. All right, Maria asks, I'm a Virgo sun ascendant and a Gemini moon. Oh, all that Mercury. Will this impact me more because it is in Virgo? Yes. So let's just say that anytime we have a Mercury retrograde, because all of your big three are ruled by Mercury, you absolutely feel this much more intimately. And so I don't know exactly the degrees of your sun and your ascendant or your moon, but I'm confident that all three of these energies, if you're Virgo, sun, and ascendant, then your Gemini moon is right at the top of your chart. So I would say be patient with the next couple of days, allow yourself a lot of rest, and really reconsider who you want to be and how you have to honor your emotions and your thoughts and your minds, and how you have to bring that all into coherence. So if you listen to the beginning of this podcast, going back to the idea of what it means to have our spiritual and emotional lives in coherence, operating together, where are we like denying, or where have we lost bits and pieces of our soul? And then of course with our sun and our rising, how are we taking action on a daily basis that is in alignment to everything that we need? Okay, so Maria, I hope that served. Gail asks, I heard that this retrograde will be more gentle with a few bumps along the way. After all, Mercury is cheeky, indeed, to create some tech mayhem and tech glitches. However, be it in Virgo, I'd love to know how Mercury being in its sign will behave at this time. There's also the Cazimi on the 6th of September. I'd love to know the goodness behind it. Yes. So Gail, this Mercury retrograde, few bumps, just because it's not really aspecting any other planets except for a trine with Jupiter. I think the trine with Jupiter, let me actually pull up a chart for September 6th. Okay. So Kazemi will happen, and then we'll also be having fourth quarter moon in Gemini. So actually thinking about, for even going back to Maria's question, and thinking about Gail's question, that Kazemi is going to be a day where not only is Mercury trining with Jupiter, that's the only aspect that Mercury is having besides with the sun, and then now this will be squaring off with the moon. So I feel like this day, what does this energy feel like? This is a fourth quarter moon phase, so like kind of a healing phase, an integration phase. Earlier in the workshop, somebody was talking about the cognizance, the understanding of like why I react in a certain way. And so I feel like this Kazemi is going to be a lot of emotional cognizance about all of the bits and pieces that have been being asked to be realigned. I don't know if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. It makes sense in my head. And it makes sense when I look at the chart. So thank you for asking about that, Gail. Sarah says, what lessons will we be revisiting? Is this retrograde the practical Virgo energy, or the hyper focused or even judgmental Virgo energy? So Sarah, it's all of it. Right? If you listen to this point and listen to the beginning of the podcast, you'll hear how this is really putting into coherence. So if you've been hyper judgmental with yourself, then we know that there has to be more work. Like why is there so much judgment, right? And how do we get beyond that judgment? So, for judging ourselves and procrastinating and not taking action, then obviously we know that our daily practices, there's something not in coherence, right, to our purpose, to what we want to be doing. Otherwise, you wouldn't be procrastinating. Right. So that's one of those places where I'll let you kind of, listen, go back and listen to their whole podcast and see where it's where it is most important for you, whether it's that practical or that judgmental. I think it's going to be a little bit of difference for all of us, depending on our relationship to that Virgo energy and where we are in our life and that realignment. Sabina asks, this Virgo retrograde, Mercury retrograde in Virgo is on my 5th house cusp, wondering if that makes it more powerful. Well, the 5th house is one of those houses of vitality, of energy, of life. And so, depending on what's happening in your 5th house, it's really asking you to bring that daily practice of play to add to your vitality, right? again, going back to that Venus retrograde, Venus wants us to reignite and revalue why play is so important in our life, that Venus retrograde in Leo. And now that you have this Mercury retrograde in the 5th house, how are you going to take daily action on your play? So go back and listen also to what I was mentioning with Amanda and even with Mickey about how daily play is absolutely necessary to realign your coherence and practice this Mercury retrograde. All right, that's the last question. Thank you for everybody who posted questions in Star Powered Podcast. And thank you everybody in Star Powered Circle for joining me live for this workshop. As a human design projector, my energy shines more brightly because of people like you who share my work. If you enjoy this podcast and want to help build a movement of innovative astrology and leadership and spark the intuitive revolution, please rate and review this podcast on Apple Podcasts, or better yet, share this podcast with your change-making besties. We will all shine brighter together as we create the future we want to see.